Energy is power, and Washington knows it. President-elect Donald Trump has delivered a blunt ultimatum to the European Union. Buy more American oil and gas or face punishing tariffs. For a Europe already reeling from energy shortages, inflation, and geopolitical turmoil, the message couldn't be clearer: comply or pay the price. This isn't just about trade. Trump's demands highlight the United States' growing leverage in global energy markets, where control over supply chains can shape international alliances and dictate economic outcomes. For the EU, already scrambling to replace Russian energy imports cut off by sanctions, Trump's ultimatum threatens to expose just how fragile Europe's independence has become. Caught in this high-stakes standoff, the EU faces more than economic choices. It faces an existential question: can it maintain its autonomy in a world where energy is wielded as a weapon? Or will it find itself shifting from one dependency to another, trading reliance on Russia for reliance on Washington? Donald Trump's return to the global stage has reignited debates about his America First approach, and his energy ultimatum to the European Union is one of his boldest moves yet. Through a fiery post on Truth Social, the president-elect made it clear: the EU must significantly increase its imports of American oil and liquefied natural gas, or face the hammer of punitive tariffs. It's not just a demand, it's a stark reminder of how energy has become a weapon in the modern geopolitical arsenal. Trump's rationale is rooted in his long-standing argument that the U.S. trade deficit with Europe is unfair and unsustainable. By framing his energy demands as a corrective measure, he casts the U.S. as the victim of an uneven trade relationship. Yet, beneath the rhetoric lies a calculated strategy to leverage America's status as one of the world's largest energy producers to reshape global trade in its favor. The message is blunt. Europe's energy crisis is an opportunity for the U.S. to assert dominance and force compliance. This is not Trump's first foray into using trade as a tool of leverage. During his first term, he imposed sweeping tariffs on European steel and aluminum under the guise of national security, catching EU leaders off guard and sparking a trade dispute that continues to influence transatlantic relations. But this time, Trump's focus on energy strikes at the very heart of Europe's vulnerabilities. The war in Ukraine, coupled with sanctions on Russian energy, has left the EU scrambling to secure alternatives, making it ripe for external pressure. American LNG has emerged as a lifeline for Europe, helping to fill the gap left by diminished Russian supplies. However, it comes at a steep cost. Unlike the pipeline gas Europe once relied on, LNG involves significant transportation and infrastructure expenses, making it far more expensive. For European households and industries already grappling with soaring energy bills, Trump's demand to buy American could deepen economic strain. Trump's ultimatum is also a stark reminder of the power imbalance in transatlantic relations. While the EU has developed tools like the anti-coercion instrument to counteract unfair trade practices, these mechanisms are largely symbolic when faced with America's sheer economic and geopolitical clout. For the EU, the choice is bleak: comply with Trump's demands and risk locking itself into another cycle of dependency, or resist and face the economic fallout of a trade war with its largest trading partner. What makes this scenario particularly alarming for Europe is its limited ability to push back. The EU's energy diversification efforts, though underway, are far from complete. Renewable energy projects and alternative supply chains require time and investment, neither of which are in abundant supply. Trump's timing capitalizes on Europe's current state of flux, leaving the bloc with little room to maneuver. For Trump, the calculus is simple. Energy is leverage, and he's willing to use it. For Europe, the stakes couldn't be higher. This is not just about trade deficits or energy supplies, it's about the future of Europe's strategic autonomy in an era where dependency on external powers comes with increasingly steep costs. Europe's energy crisis has been brewing for years, but the events of the past 2 years have turned it into a full-blown emergency. The war in Ukraine and subsequent EU sanctions on Russian energy have fundamentally altered the continent's energy landscape. For decades, Europe relied heavily on Russian natural gas to fuel its industries, heat its homes, and stabilize its energy prices. This relationship, while fraught with political tension, provided Europe with a reliable and affordable energy supply. Today that reliance has been shattered, leaving the European Union scrambling to secure alternatives. The sudden stop in Russian gas has shown a big weakness for the European Union. Pipelines that used to bring in lots of energy are now just sitting there, not working. And Europe doesn't have many other choices for getting its energy. The EU has done a pretty good job of using less Russian energy. They're buying a lot less than before, but it hasn't been easy. Energy prices have gone way up, everything costs more, and European businesses are having a hard time keeping up with other countries where energy is cheaper. One of Europe's immediate solutions has been to turn to liquefied natural gas, or LNG, from the United States and other suppliers. American LNG has become a critical lifeline, filling the gap left by the loss of Russian pipeline gas. However, this solution comes with significant drawbacks. LNG is far more expensive than pipeline gas due to transportation and processing costs. Moreover, the infrastructure required to import and distribute LNG, such as specialized terminals and storage facilities, is costly and time-intensive to develop. For many European nations, particularly those in the south and east, these infrastructure limitations pose a significant hurdle. Europe's dependence on LNG also raises broader questions about the bloc's strategic autonomy. While turning to the US for energy might solve immediate supply issues, it risks creating a new form of dependency, one where Europe's energy security is tied to American foreign policy and market dynamics. This is particularly troubling given the unpredictability of US politics and the potential for policy shifts that could leave Europe vulnerable. Another challenge facing the EU is the uneven impact of the energy crisis across member states. Countries like Germany, which historically relied heavily on Russian gas, have faced severe economic repercussions. Meanwhile, nations with diversified energy portfolios or access to alternative suppliers have been better able to weather the storm. This disparity has tested the EU's unity, with some member states advocating for more aggressive measures to secure energy supplies, while others prioritize maintaining long-term sustainability and independence. The EU's energy dilemma is further compounded by the urgent need to transition to renewable energy. While the bloc has made ambitious commitments to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and expand its use of renewables, the current crisis has forced a temporary shift back to fossil fuels. Coal, once considered a relic of the past, is making a comeback in some European countries as they struggle to keep the lights on. This reliance on coal undermines the EU's climate goals and raises questions about its ability to lead the global green transition. At the heart of Europe's energy dilemma is a stark reality. The bloc is caught in a catch-22. On one hand, it must address immediate energy needs to prevent economic and social instability. On the other, it must maintain its commitment to long-term sustainability and independence. Balancing these competing priorities is no easy task, particularly in a geopolitical environment where energy is increasingly used as a tool of influence and control. Europe's current predicament underscores the importance of accelerating efforts to diversify energy sources and build a more resilient energy system. This includes expanding LNG infrastructure, investing in renewable energy projects, and enhancing energy efficiency across industries and households. It also means strengthening the bloc's internal solidarity, ensuring that all member states have access to affordable and reliable energy. The European Union is facing a really tough challenge. How they handle this energy crisis is a big deal. Ultimately, the EU's ability to navigate this crisis will depend on its willingness to make difficult choices and its capacity to act with unity and resolve. The stakes are high, not just for Europe but for the broader global order. As the EU grapples with its energy dilemma, its decisions will have far-reaching implications. In a world where energy security is synonymous with sovereignty, the EU's decisions about energy will change who has the power in the world. The European Union has long recognized the importance of energy independence, but recent crises have turned this goal into an urgent necessity. As the bloc grapples with immediate energy shortages and soaring costs, it must also focus on the long-term strategies that will secure its future. These strategies are not just about energy security, they are about ensuring Europe's economic resilience, political autonomy, and leadership in the global green transition. One cornerstone of the EU's long-term energy strategy is the expansion of liquefied natural gas, or LNG infrastructure. Over the past decade, Europe has invested heavily in LNG terminals, allowing member states to import gas from a wider range of suppliers, including the United States, Qatar, and Australia. These facilities have proven critical in reducing Europe's reliance on Russian pipeline gas, particularly in the wake of sanctions. However, the rapid expansion of LNG imports comes with significant challenges. Building and upgrading LNG terminals is costly and time-consuming, requiring extensive planning and investment. Moreover, LNG is inherently more expensive than pipeline gas due to transportation and processing costs. placing additional financial strain on European consumers and industries. Renewable energy is another pillar of Europe's long-term strategy. The EU has set ambitious targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and increasing the share of renewables in its energy mix. Solar and wind power have seen rapid growth, supported by substantial investments in infrastructure and technological innovation. However, these sources are intermittent by nature, requiring advancements in energy storage solutions to ensure reliability. Hydrogen, often touted as the fuel of the future, offers a promising avenue for decarbonizing industries and transportation. Yet the production of green hydrogen, derived from renewable energy, remains expensive and limited in scale. Scaling up these technologies will require coordinated efforts across member states, as well as significant financial support from both public and private sectors. Energy efficiency also plays a crucial role in the EU's strategy. Reducing energy consumption across industries, households, and transportation can help alleviate the pressure on supply chains and lower emissions. The EU's Green Deal includes measures to retrofit buildings, improve industrial processes, and promote sustainable mobility. These initiatives not only contribute to energy security, but also create jobs and stimulate economic growth, making them a win-win for the bloc. However, achieving these long-term goals requires overcoming several obstacles. The first is financial. Transitioning to a greener, more resilient energy system demands trillions of euros in investment, much of which must come from private sources. Attracting this investment will require clear policy frameworks, streamlined regulations, and incentives that make renewable projects financially viable. The EU must also address disparities among its member states. Wealthier countries like Germany and France can afford to invest heavily in renewables and infrastructure, while poorer nations in Eastern and Southern Europe face greater challenges in mobilizing resources. Ensuring equitable access to funding and technology will be essential to maintaining the bloc's unity. Geopolitical factors further complicate the EU's energy transition. While reducing dependence on Russian gas is a priority, increasing reliance on LNG from the United States and other suppliers risks creating new vulnerabilities. The EU must carefully navigate its relationships with external partners, balancing short-term energy needs with the long-term goal of strategic autonomy. Additionally, the global competition for renewable technologies and critical raw materials, such as lithium for batteries and rare earth elements for wind turbines, poses a challenge. Securing these resources will require not only investments in domestic production, but also partnerships with other nations and regions. To address these challenges, the EU must adopt a multifaceted approach that combines innovation, investment, and international cooperation. Research and development will be key to unlocking breakthroughs in energy storage, hydrogen production, and grid management. Public-private partnerships can help scale up renewable projects and accelerate the deployment of cutting-edge technologies. At the same time, the EU must strengthen its trade and diplomatic ties to ensure access to critical resources and technologies. Collaboration among member states will also be critical. The EU's energy market is deeply interconnected, with electricity and gas flowing across borders. Enhancing this integration can improve efficiency and resilience, allowing the bloc to better absorb shocks and optimize resource allocation. Initiatives like the European Green Deal and the REPowerEU plan aim to foster this cooperation, but their success depends on strong political will and coordinated action at both the national and EU levels. Ultimately, the EU's long-term energy strategy is about more than securing supplies or meeting climate targets. It's about defining Europe's role in a rapidly changing world. By investing in renewables, building resilient infrastructure, and fostering innovation, the EU can position itself as a global leader in the green transition. This leadership not only strengthens Europe's economic and geopolitical standing, but also sets an example for other regions to follow. The stakes could not be higher. The choices made today will shape Europe's energy landscape for decades to come, determining its ability to weather future crises and maintain its independence. As the EU navigates this complex and challenging path, one thing is clear: the time to act is now. The energy crisis facing Europe is not just a test of infrastructure or policy. It's a geopolitical chess game with stakes that extend far beyond the continent's borders. As energy becomes increasingly weaponized in international relations, Europe finds itself in a precarious position, navigating between immediate needs and long-term strategic goals. Donald Trump's recent energy ultimatum to the European Union underscores the growing significance of energy as a tool of power and influence, raising fundamental questions about Europe's role in the global order. At the heart of this dynamic lies the concept of strategic autonomy, the ability of the European Union to act independently in its own best interests. For decades, Europe's energy policies were shaped by a reliance on Russian gas, a relationship that provided stability but also created significant vulnerabilities. The war in Ukraine and subsequent sanctions on Russia have shattered this arrangement, forcing Europe to seek alternatives. Yet as the bloc moves away from Russian energy, it risks trading one dependency for another. The United States, now a leading exporter of liquefied natural gas, has stepped in to fill the void left by Russian pipeline gas. While this shift offers short-term relief, it also raises concerns about the long-term implications of increased reliance on American energy. The U.S. has not hesitated to use its economic and geopolitical leverage, as evidenced by Trump's demand for greater European purchases of American oil and gas. This move highlights a broader reality. Energy is no longer just a commodity, it's a strategic asset. For Europe, this dependence on American LNG presents a paradox. On one hand, the U.S. is a more stable and predictable partner than Russia. On the other, aligning too closely with Washington's energy policies risks undermining Europe's efforts to assert its strategic autonomy. American energy dominance comes with strings attached, and the EU must carefully navigate this relationship to avoid becoming overly reliant on a single supplier. Beyond the transatlantic relationship, Europe's energy crisis has broader geopolitical implications. The global competition for energy resources is intensifying, with major powers like China, India, and the United States vying for influence in resource-rich regions. Europe's ability to secure access to critical resources such as natural gas, rare earth elements, and renewable technologies will play a key role in determining its position in this evolving landscape. Partnerships with countries in the Middle East, Africa, and Central Asia will be essential, but these relationships must be carefully managed to avoid creating new dependencies. The EU's internal dynamics also play a crucial role in shaping its geopolitical strategy. Member states have varying energy needs and priorities, leading to disagreements over the best path forward. Countries like Germany, which historically relied heavily on Russian gas, are pushing for rapid diversification, while others, such as Hungary, advocate for maintaining ties with Moscow. This lack of consensus complicates the bloc's ability to present a united front on the global stage, weakening its negotiating position and reducing its influence. Another key factor is the global transition to renewable energy. As the world moves toward a greener future, the balance of power in energy markets is shifting. Countries that lead in renewable technologies such as solar, wind, and hydrogen will gain a strategic advantage. For Europe, investing in these technologies is not just an environmental imperative, it's a geopolitical necessity. By positioning itself as a leader in the green transition, the EU can reduce its dependence on external suppliers, enhance its economic resilience, and strengthen its global standing. However, the road to renewable dominance is fraught with challenges. The EU faces stiff competition from other major powers, particularly China, which has established itself as a leader in renewable energy production and innovation. Securing access to the raw materials needed for renewable technologies, such as lithium and cobalt, adds another layer of complexity. Europe must balance its environmental goals with the geopolitical realities of resource competition, forging partnerships and trade agreements that ensure a stable supply of critical materials. Trump's ultimatum has brought these challenges into sharp focus, forcing the EU to confront the limits of its current energy strategy. The bloc's ability to navigate this crisis will depend on its willingness to make bold decisions and its capacity to act with unity and resolve. Strengthening internal solidarity, enhancing infrastructure, and investing in innovation will be critical steps toward achieving strategic autonomy. The geopolitical implications of Europe's energy crisis extend far beyond its borders. As energy becomes a central axis of global power, the decisions made by the EU will shape not only its own future but also the broader international order. In this high-stakes game, energy is not just a resource, it's a weapon, a bargaining chip, and a measure of sovereignty. For Europe, the challenge is clear: adapt, innovate, and lead, or risk being left behind in a world where energy security defines power. Europe's current energy crisis is more than a test of its infrastructure and policies. It's a defining moment that will shape the continent's future for decades to come. At the intersection of immediate needs and long-term ambitions, The decisions made today will have profound implications for Europe's economic resilience, political independence, and global standing. As the bloc navigates these challenges, the stakes couldn't be higher. Donald Trump's energy ultimatum highlights a harsh reality. Europe can no longer afford to view energy purely as a commodity. It is now a tool of power, influence, and leverage. While American LNG offers a short-term solution to the void left by Russian gas, it also exposes Europe to new dependencies and vulnerabilities. The bloc's ability to maintain its strategic autonomy in the face of external pressures will be a defining feature of its geopolitical relevance. Yet this crisis is not just a story of dependency and vulnerability. It is also an opportunity for Europe to redefine itself as a global leader in the energy transition. The EU's investments in renewables, energy efficiency, and green technologies have the potential to not only reduce its reliance on external suppliers, but also position it at the forefront of the global fight against climate change. By accelerating the adoption of solar, wind, hydrogen, and other clean energy solutions, Europe can transform its energy challenges into a source of strength and innovation. However, achieving this vision will require more than ambition. It will demand unity among member states, bold investments in infrastructure and technology, and a willingness to make difficult decisions. The disparities in energy resources and priorities across the EU must be addressed to ensure that no member state is left behind. Equitable access to funding, shared innovation, and coordinated policies will be critical in building a resilient and inclusive energy future. The geopolitical implications of Europe's energy crisis extend far beyond its borders. In a world where energy security is synonymous with sovereignty, the EU's ability to navigate this crisis will influence global power dynamics for years to come. By diversifying its energy sources, enhancing its infrastructure, and embracing the green transition, Europe can assert itself as a key player in shaping a more sustainable and equitable international order. Ultimately, the choices Europe makes now are about more than energy. They are about its identity and its place in the world. Will the EU rise to the occasion, leveraging its challenges to build a more resilient and autonomous future? Or will it remain entangled in cycles of dependency and vulnerability, unable to break free from the pressures of external powers? The path forward is fraught with challenges, but it is also filled with possibilities. For Europe, the time to act is now, not just to overcome the crisis at hand, but to lay the foundation for a stronger, more independent, and more innovative future. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Italy's evolving role on the global stage. If you've enjoyed this analysis, please consider supporting us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your engagement helps us continue bringing you insights into the forces shaping our world.